Alrighty. So I'm curious about all these emoji stories. Um, awesome. Well, thanks for joining, everyone. I'm Zoe Fitzgerald from Alchemy Learning, and happy to be hosting our alumni meetup for today. And yeah, for those who might not know, so Alchemy is the Australian partner for Chaos Pilot. And yeah, so we host these quarterly meetups with alumni from the Chaos Pilot Masterclass and Experience Design Program to stay connected, to inspire each other, share knowledge, tips, reflect together on what's happening. And yeah, we're really grateful to have one of our alum with us today, Tessa, who's going to be our guest speaker and kind of lead us in a bit of reflection and thought. I did want to start with an acknowledgement of country. And for those of you who heard, I'm currently joining you from Santiago de los Caballeros, which is in the Dominican Republic, not to be confused with Santiago in Chile, which happens on most of my Google searches while I've been here looking for things. And I was wanting to do an acknowledgement of country and acknowledge the traditional owners of the land where I'm joining you from, which I learned are the Taino people. And one interesting thing I learned about them today was that their spirituality was centered on worship of Zemius, or spirits or ancestors. And a thing I discovered that I thought was particularly relevant for our catch up today was that many of the deities and gods and goddesses that they revered had usually sons, had twins. And they were always showing these two sides of the same situation. So you've got here the messenger of rain and the spirit of clear skies, this duality. And I thought it was just an interesting, an interesting perspective, I guess, maybe given our theme today. So I wanted to acknowledge the Taino, the traditional owners of the lands where I'm joining from. To also pay my respects to the traditional owners where you're joining us from. And yeah, that just that kind of from a very long-standing view, right, of that duality and the two sides of everything, and it kind of seems to connect in, I think, with our theme today, going back to exploring AITD conference, which when I was chatting with Tessa about what might those be, this kind of emerged, this kind of combination of the tech and the human. So that's kind of, I'd love to say that, Tessa was our correspondent there, but she, of her own merit, was asked to be a speaker there. And so we thought, oh, could you come and share what was happening at the conference with us? So, today's opportunity to reconnect with other alchemists, other alumni, to hear her highlights around these two themes, and to think together about the kind of so what and now what for our work when it comes to the tech and the human. And just to share a little bit at the end about some stuff that we're working on in regards to the community that we'd love to get you involved in. So just to do a little check-in as we're getting going. Not sure if I think finally oh dear, I'm doing a terrible job at driving these. I think Sylvain was finally able to join us. Did you get to stay on, Sylvain? No. All right, let me just set up some pairs so you can actually have a little bit more of a decent chat. All right, I'm gonna open up the breakouts, just have a bit of a connection before content. And yeah, just introduce yourself to each other. And yeah, what's been a recent human highlight for you that might have, helped made you feel all the happy emojis? So yeah, so we're just going to spend 5 minutes of that opportunity to connect. And yeah, apologies, I'm kind of driving solo today. So if I don't see something in the chat that's time sensitive, please do feel free to shout out. Um, Alrighty, we'll open up these rooms and get some connecting happening. So what are we going to do today? So we've done a bit of an I do and connection, and we're going to just quickly go through the heart part of our I do heart kickoff. And we've kind of structured today's catch up around the W cubed or W3 liberating structure. I'm not sure anybody's familiar with that, but yeah, if you Google liberating structures W3, it's a really great little format for doing debriefs actually of a shared experience. So we've kind of structured the arches today around that. So in terms of the what happened, which is the first W, Tessa's going to share with us, her kind of highlights around those two key themes of the tech and the human. We are going to, I've created a little mural, which I'm sharing in the chat now if you want to get it open. And you're invited, something that she says kind of strikes you to kind of download that into a post-it note in the what happened section of the mural. And we'll also give you 2 minutes once she's kind of finished that section to quickly add there as well. And then we're going to do the so what, now what. So we'll see how we go at the time, whether we're doing as one group or two smaller groups, but just kind of some sense making from that, what does that mean for you? What patterns can you see? How does that show up in your work? And any obvious kind of now what might be a first action for each of us around that. And then, yeah, hopefully a little bit of time at the end for some community updates and a checkout. So that's kind of more or less how the arches are going to flow. Yeah, as I said, we've got the mural there, and let me know if anyone's having any issues getting on. And don't stress, probably TJ might be a bit beyond your setup. Don't stress, we can scribe on your behalf. And yeah, so here is the host, producer, facilitator. Tessa's gonna be our guest speaker. And yeah, I really encourage everyone to be an active participant and co-create on the mural. And yeah, just an invitation to really bring your curiosity, be open for connection, make the connection to your own work. We could talk about these themes for multiple days. Well, they talked about it for at least 3 days at AITD, but we've got limited time. So yeah, we're just going to make the best of the time we have. Yeah, and I guess just valuing even new questions, right, that we leave away. We might leave this time with not necessarily, full answers, but at least new questions that we can go from there. So should we get stuck into it? Any questions as we go? I just know what's I think you've got to be. Oh, you've been deactivated. Okay, Tessa, I'll sort that out for you. That's weird.
David, you got that
Anybody
as well?
else?
Yeah, I think it's the
Did
link,
you get that as
Zoe.
well?
Yeah.
Okay, no worries. All right. We'll let Tessa start sharing, and in the background I'll work on that for you. Apologies. So Tessa very kindly has a lot going on. Very kindly has made time for us today to share her highlights. As I said, she was one of the guest speakers at the conference, but to share her highlights with us. And you might remember her from previous meetups from last year. She was one of the speakers around the theme of generative AI and in relation to L&D. And she's kindly agreed to join us today. So I'll hand over to you, Tessa. I'll stop sharing.
Thank you very much, Zoe.
No worries. You should be able to let me know if you don't.
That's all right.
I can share for you.
Yeah, we can kick off. I just wondered, I know that I definitely already know Mungo. I know that much. So I'm just wondering whether anybody else has attended the session that Zoe just mentioned. So have we met each other before? I guess is my question. No. Fantastic. Okay, so I can be anyone I want to be today, Mungo. Don't tell them. So yeah, look, I'm hoping I'm sharing the right screen. We can all see the welcome. Yep, fantastic. And nothing else, Zoe. I'm not sharing my presenter screen by accident. Fantastic. That's what we want. So yeah, look, thank you very much for having me today. Just to, I guess, you know, also dial in terms of where I'm calling from, the traditional owners of the country that I'm standing on or sitting on, I should say. I am based in Adelaide, so I'm very firmly in the Ghana Plains. And yes, it's a freezing cold day here today. So you'll probably find most South Australians in your life will be bemoaning the cold. And anyone who's calling from Melbourne or somewhere colder, you can all just like roll your eyes at us and yeah, tell us to harden up a little bit. So look, today I feel like I'm doing this. I don't know if you know about this particular species of penguin, but these little guys, they like to, when they're courting, and I'm not suggesting that I'm about to court you, by the way, but among friends, what they like to do is they like to go off and find smooth pebbles to bring back to the person that they're wanting to start a relationship with, and they share it. And if the pebble is accepted, that kind of signals the start of a new connection. As I said, it's a courting ritual for those guys. Let's just kind of bend it and hack it and make it a little bit more about just general, like, you know, platonic connection today. But I feel like this is what I'm doing. I had this fantastic opportunity to go to the conference. I've heard some really cool ideas and I want to share them with you today. They are going to be about the size of that pebble. So they're like just little snippets of, you know, what was 3 days at the Australian Institute of Training and Development Conference. But hopefully it's enough to kind of light your fire and give you some things to, I don't know, hyper focus on, or some new rabbit holes to go down, that kind of thing. So I'm trying to give you my pebbles. So yeah, look, this was the AITD conference. Have we got anyone who has been to an AITD conference before? No? Have we got anybody who's a member of the AITD? Yep. Zoe, fantastic. And just so that I understand the room, is everybody in learning and development in some way? Rachel's a bit like this. Yep. Okay. So I'm going to pitch this from the learning and development angle, but you know, to bring it back to this human connection idea, fundamentally, a lot of what I'm about to share with you is useful regardless of how you're working with people. Like if you are working with people, knowing some of the tools and some of the ways that you can work with them effectively is going to be relevant to you anyway. So today we've busted what I've got to share down into this dichotomy of the human and the tech. So I was really interested as I watched the program play out that a lot of the presentations either focused on one or the other, and every now and then you got something that looked at the blend of the two. So I thought we would look at both sides today just for balance and take it from there. And if you see this little guy on any of the slides, I just want you to know that that's my invitation to you to screenshot. So I know that might not work for everyone if you're dialing in on a mobile, but if you've got your fingers ready with the shortcut, feel free to take a screenshot of those things. So before I go into the actual conference, I just wanted to introduce you to someone that I met actually at the conference. And so I've got them dialing in from my phone. So let's see if the tech actually works. Hey, Michael, can you just confirm that you're there?
Hi, Tessa. I'm here and ready to chat.
Oh, fantastic. It's great to have you here, Michael. Look, I was just wondering, you were at the AITD conference with me. Do you want to just mention something to the people online about the AITD conference?
Absolutely, Tessa. At the AITD conference, I loved hearing about how people are using technology to magnify human learning. It was truly inspiring to see the innovative ways tech is enhancing educational experiences and making learning more accessible and engaging for everyone.
I agree. Like there's definitely a major difference in how accessible and interactive the technology is. I mean, even just in 12 months from like last year when things like ChatGPT were brand new, the way that people are using them 12 months later is just absolutely amazing.
Absolutely, Tessa. Technology has become so interactive and engaging. I mean, now you can even have a conversation with AI. Like me, who knew talking to a chatbot could be this fun? It's like having your own personal assistant that doesn't need coffee breaks.
That's good because I know how much I pay for coffee these days, and anywhere that I can save that kind of cash is great. Look, thanks, Michael. I'm going to say goodbye now, and I'm going to continue on my presentation.
Thanks, Tessa. Goodbye, everyone. Have a great rest of
Okay, we're just cutting him off because he's waffling now. Anyway, so what you've just had now is just a very short demo of a product that I presented on stage as part of my presentation. So Zoe mentioned that I was one of the folks up on stage. It's obviously very easy for me to report back to you the things that I presented. So I'm actually going to directly share with you some of the slides that I put on the stage, but I'm not going to give you the full package. I'm just going to give you some of the key highlights, so I've got enough room to talk about other people this morning. But that is a technology that I did demo, much like I've done with you today on the stage, as I mentioned. Does anybody know what that particular platform is that I was just working with? Nope. Okie dokie. So that one there is ChatGPT. So if I pop it up on my, oops, there we go. So on my camera, so that's ChatGPT. So I spent about 3 to 4 minutes in that interface before we started our call this morning, just priming the conversation so that ChatGPT knew that I was going to refer to it as Michael. It knew what my name was. It knew a bit about the conference. I wanted it to make a joke about being AI, etc. So I've been in a back and forth where I've basically trained that model, and then I've used the hands-free mode, which is available if you've got ChatGPT for free. So you can download it as a mobile app, or you can use it in browser. The app is the one that you want to go to, though, if you want the hands-free option. So you can just tap a little headset icon and it goes into hands-free mode. So you can enter into this back and forth conversation with the model about anything that you want. So I will often use that when I'm driving to think about new ideas, or to do research, or to help get my strategy straight for problem solving for the day, and things like that. And once you've finished talking to the model, you end up with a copy of that conversation actually recorded, which is really useful too, because, yeah, I like to solve lots of juicy problems when I'm driving, but sometimes I forget. So it's good to have the record. It's like 2 jobs done in one. So if you haven't had a play with ChatGPT yet, really recommend doing it, because that kind of hands-free mode is super, super useful for learning, and super useful for engaging people. You can speak to it in other languages and get it to teach you how to be more effective in language. You can get it to, you know, coach you on, you know, all sorts of things that are to do with conversations. So that's ChatGPT. So it's been around since 2022, which is basically my entry into this space, because I pretty much like just fell in love with it the second that it landed. So yeah, that's, you know, I'm not technical. I'm somebody who's coming in pretty much just as a fangirl. I love the generative AI space, which is the umbrella term for where the ChatGPT tool sits. And, you know, it's just, you know, you're never going to learn everything that you need to know about this. So I love sharing bits of information so that people can run off and do their own research and sort of play with these things for themselves. So on that, I have got this one, and hopefully his audio is going to work. So that one there is an AI avatar that I've generated using a product called Hey Gen. It's a bit crunchy. The voice is a bit rubbish, but you can see, again, this is just an example of the sort of technology that is emerging and getting better and better with time. It took me all of about 5 seconds to create that video and drop it into a Canva slide. And so if you needed to, in a pinch, you know, produce something that sounded relatively professional, that wasn't you, and didn't involve you having to hire a voice actor or somebody else to do this work for you, products like Hey Gen are really good for you to, you know, have a bit of a play with. That one was generated on a free account, so you didn't need to sign up in order to get that sort of length of video out of him. So at the conference, I asked people this question, just in terms of, hey, look, when you think about your workload and your typical sort of day, what would you actually like to give to the robots? Because sometimes we can be a bit afraid, but sometimes there's opportunities to hand things over that you don't actually want to have. So the answers came into my wonderful Mentimeter, which, by the way, another learning technology that you can use. The answers came in, and overwhelmingly they were to do with admin, responding to emails, and kind of variations on that theme. So I'm sure that you're probably very similar to the audience in that, you know, we spend our time on things that are not, I guess, value multiplying activities in our days. And so as the technology starts to improve in products like the Microsoft suite, or even, you know, the Google suite, and we can start to lean on the robots to say, look, can you just give me a summary of all the emails that I've received on this topic? Because I just do not want to have to go through my inbox and find them all. It can actually now start doing that. So those capabilities are now within the tools that we're using in our day-to-day. So actively look for opportunities to offload the things that are you as a human not, you know, using your time in the most value and the sort of, you know, value multiplying kind of enriching way. This is, you know, the dream, right? So if I've used the term generative AI, you're not sure what that is, I can give you a little bit of a spiel and get ready with your screenshot, because I'm about to give you a good slide that you might want to have a look at later. So large language models is the way that we describe the model that ChatGPT is and other products like that. So it's a model that is predominantly trained using language, and its outputs are, you know, language based. So LLMs like ChatGPT use a neural network which basically mimics the human brain. It's got all sorts of data points available to it, which means it can make billions and trillions of connections between those data points in order to generate answers. So it's the generation of the answers from scratch which sets this AI apart from other AI that we know, which, you know, things like voice assistants or facial recognition technology, things like that. This is generating answers for you actually on the fly. The transformer, which I've also got in bold there, relates to that brain that I just mentioned before. So with this transformer, we can put in a range of formats. So we could use text inputs, we can put in images, we can also feed it audio or video, and then we can get any combination of those formats as output. So it really just depends on the product, and in some cases how much you're prepared to pay. So I guess the P part of the GPT, which I haven't covered because I've got the G is generates and the T is transformer, is the fact that this model is pre-trained. So we're not having to hire developer teams in order to work with this model. We don't have to know technology. We don't have to write a single line of code. These are made available to us already trained on huge data sets. So that's part of what makes it really user-friendly. And yeah, why this is going to absolutely change the way that we work as individuals and as humans working with humans. So here's your screenshotable one. The point that I just wanted to make on this one is that I'm referencing ChatGPT because I use that quite regularly in my workflows and in my life now. But at the moment, you can't, even with the most advanced models available to the public, upload video and get it to actually see what you've shared with it. So that's a limitation at the moment, but you'll see on the right-hand side that the company that produces ChatGPT is working on a product called Sora, and that actually is going to create videos just from text input, and really high quality videos. So if you want to go and have a look into the future a little bit, just perhaps go onto Twitter and have a look at Sora, and you'll see some of the prompts that the crowds fed so that they could take this thing for a spin. Here's another screenshotable one, not even going to read it, just going to give you a couple of seconds to screenshot it if you want, but don't stress if you don't, because we can also have the slides after. I've mentioned that Microsoft is picking up some of these functionalities. So their AI product is called Copilot. I've got a really, really basic walkthrough video, again, screenshot to grab that link or refer to the slide deck after. And here's another screenshotable one. I told you you needed to be ready with your fast fingers. This one here is just a bit of a list of, look, hey, if you want to go play, here are some of the things that I recommend you go out and start with. So these are a range of products that I like. Some of them are better than others. Some of them I use more often than others, but they kind of cover the full spectrum of, you know, things giving you text or images or audio or video, or a combination of all of those things. So if you think you're sort of like, oh, look, actually, this is not for me, I'm going to go and live on an island somewhere and get away from this, you can do that to a point, but resistance is going to be somewhat futile, because whether you're actually going out and using these products for yourself, they are going to start creeping into other products that you know and love. So I've got 3 examples up there. I've got Loom for the screen recording. I've got Galaxy AI, which is on my Samsung phone. And I've also got Canva. So these other bigger established products are now leveraging this AI capability and pulling it into their functionality. So you can run, but you can't really hide from this stuff. So here we are with a bit of a Skynet dystopian future, just to kind of bring home the point. Let's hope it doesn't end up like this. But I actually generated that image using ChatGPT, told it I wanted an image that kind of looked a bit Skynet-ish of the future. And this is what it gave me. So my main message to the folks at AITD was just this question of like, how do we actually survive? We can't keep up with how quick this technology evolves. You're never going to be an expert because there's always going to be something that has changed overnight or been released, or that AI has actually become sentient and is learning things faster than we ever can. So I think the way that we survive is that we need to band together and be really good with our human connections and our communities. So the deck that I brought to AITD included a range of things that I use personally in order to generate that deck. And so full disclosure, I just provided this list of products at the end so that people knew where the AI existed in the things that I shared, and where the technology existed and where it didn't. So that's a little bit of a wrap on just some of the things that I presented. So before I come into some of the other things that were presented around tech, I just wanted to check, is there anything, and you can pop this in chat if you like, is there anything that I've said that you'd like to ask a question about? Or you can come off mute and jump in. And we've had Joanne just drop off as well, Zoe. All right. That's okay. Folks might be writing, or you might be feeling a bit like you don't want to come off mute. That's totally fine. So what I'll do is I'll keep forging ahead just because I'm conscious of time. Oh, here we go. Thank you, David. Why? So, David, do you want to just elaborate a little bit further on that question? So I've given you some things about what and how. So, yep, here are the tools and here's how you can use them. What would you like to know about the why?
So it's all unknown. I've got no idea why I would use it. Like, what's the benefit? What's the value? That type of thing.
Yeah, okay, no problem. Look, for me, I use it because it's fun and I'm that superficial. But
Okay.
other reasons why you
I
would
doubt
use
it.
it. I think, as I said, like this is going to increasingly come into everything that we do anyway, a little bit like the internet. Like you can probably have resisted it for a while, but then before you know it, everyone's needing to be internet connected. And so I think part of leaning into this space is about recognizing that this is actually a major change for us globally in terms of how we work and how we engage with others and things like that. So I think part of it is about maintaining capability and keeping pace with what's going on around us. At this point, if you start adopting these things and becoming expert at using them, it's going to put you ahead of the curve. So if you need a little bit more time to ease in, don't stress. We're still sort of in that early adoption phase, I think. Other reasons why you would use this, it is super fast. So you can go into ChatGPT and you can say something like, help me solve the social housing crisis in South Australia. I want you to write it as a proposal for legislative change. I want you to give me the links for why this is an evidence-based proposal. And I also want you to write me the email comms to the relevant MP so that I can get this conversation started. And it will just spit all of that stuff out in about 10 seconds. So it just really supercharges the way that you work. And for me, I use it a lot like a colleague where I'm bouncing ideas off of it and helping to get, my thoughts straight, really. So, yeah, so they're just some of my quick answers.
Thank you.
Okay, and no, you're welcome, David. I hope you give it a go. I mean, the speed of it is really impressive, and it's all about how well you ask it to do what you're asking it to do, really. So anybody who's good at communicating and is really good at being clear on what they're expecting as an output is going to really nail things in this space very quickly. Cool. And thank you for sharing, Savannah, as well in the chat there. had chats with learning development's graphic designers in the team, gave them more dots to connect, and really helped to generate lots of ideas. So yeah, fantastic for brainstorming and yeah, helping to just make sure that you've got all avenues covered. Fantastic. So some other people who are using technology include Andrew Meadler from Elevate Learning. So he talked about using VR. Again, recommend that you connect with all of these people on LinkedIn or chase them up if anything that I say kind of grabs your attention. So he's saying that VR helps the folks he's working with learn 4 times faster than in a classroom. And he also said that employees are only spending 1% of their time on learning and development. So when you've got this much time to engage people and try and influence their behaviour or give them new ideas, using something like VR that is going to supercharge the impact and shorten the time to that outcome is kind of just a smart way to play it. So my gift, my little pebble to you from his presentation is that PwC study there. So it's annoying that my second apostrophe is missing, but never mind. So have a Google of that study. But basically his whole deck was using that as the backbone for what he was presenting as the case for introducing VR. We also met Mary. So she is a real firecracker from New South Wales. I really liked Mary. She is using not only ChatGPT-like models in AI, but also VR. And so what she has done is she has worked with ChatGPT in a ring-fenced environment. I've got a typo there too, Zoe. That's this is what happens when you do it just in time. And you don't run the AI to cross-check the typos. So she has trained a GPT with their sort of training manuals and things like that in New South Wales Transport, so that it's an expert in the sorts of things that they need to train their field workers in. And so what that means is that the field workers can now engage in a back and forth conversation through a chatbot style interface and get that feedback and that advice from a product that now actually is an expert in the domain of of New South Wales Transport and the things that they're teaching folks. So she's got that at a proof of concept phase and it has worked really well with a range of people to be able to show that this thing has got value. She's also trained another one to be good at project management. So she said one of the worst things ever is like having to write project management documents. And so she's trained one to be really good at creating project management documents for them so that the humans don't have to waste time on that. So that was her GPT use. She's also using VR, and because she's using a Scrum and an Agile methodology, they tried VR thinking that it could teach the blokes how to work on the trains. Blokes, that was very sexist for me. The folks to work on the trains. And what they discovered very quickly was that the VR actually wasn't appropriate because it didn't recreate some of the environmental aspects that they need to consider, like having to step over rails in order to keep themselves safe while they're also looking at the part that they're trying to fix. So through using that sort of agile approach to tech adoption, they quickly worked out that limitation and then actually decided not to pursue VR. So she was really interesting and a very good example of how to do this kind of tech adoption in a disciplined way. So find her on LinkedIn if you can and tell her that I told you that she's cool and she'll understand what the dots are that you're joining there. And the last one, this is one that you should know, Zoe. This is Erica. And I've also not got her name in there, so that's fantastic. This is Erica, and she was talking about the fact that she's used an interface called Udly, which I'm going to come over here, and I'll put her name actually in chat since I've not updated it on the slide. She's using this product called Udly, which operates very much like ChatGPT in that it's a chatbot. But what they've done is they've decided to use this in order to take video of people, performing different tasks. Say, for example, speaking to a customer or, things like that. And they've trained it so that this can provide real-time responsive feedback to the learners to basically coach them on, conversations and things like that. So it's just a really good use case of what happens when you actually apply these tools and what it can do for things like engagement and things like that. So Udly, I had a quick look at it. I'd never heard of it before, but it seems to make it really easy and really accessible in order to, get the most out of tech and pay it forwards to your learners. So yeah, recommend having a look at that one. So that is pretty much my little snapshot of some of the tech aspects that came up. There were, of course, more, but I think those ones there give you some food for thought, some research to have a look at, and maybe some new tools as well. So yes, Mungo, I think that asking ChatGPT about itself is a good way to learn. So hey, I don't know anything about you. Can you please tell me how I use you? And if I wanted to do this thing, what do I need to ask you to do for me? You know, so you can get really meta and ask ChatGPT to help you. You can also ask it to program, you know, like give me a 5-day learning program with, you know, 20 minutes that I have spare in my lunch break so that I can learn more about this space. That can be another way that you can use that as well. Zoe, do you want to jump in at this point with anything interactive before I move on to the humans?
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. Yeah, we just want to have like a 2-minute, and we can just do it in the chat. And I've been trying to add people to the mural, but I don't know if it got through. But if you wanted to just say it or put it in the chat, I can add it onto the mural board. So we've got a kind of register of it. But yeah, anything that kind of stood out to you from, you know, the highlights that Tessa shared around the tech. I've kind of been adding as we go, but anything that stood out to anyone that you'd like me to make sure gets put on a post-it? And if you did mention that you were having issues accessing the mural, I added like email specific invites to people. So let me know. Otherwise, I can play the role of scribe. But yeah, anything that stood out?
So Rachel, I've just seen that you've mentioned about the tips for learning more about how to use ChatGPT in a more complex way. I think, you know, there's a few combinations that you can kind of play around with in order to, I guess, upgrade your prompting. So you can think about steering the model. So you can use ChatGPT just as it comes to you, or you can actually ask it to specifically behave as someone or something. So, you know, for me, I like to say, look, I'd like you to act as a leading, like a thought leader in business architecture, because that's part of my day job. And sometimes I like to speak to a colleague who's in a similar field or understands the discipline and some of the methodologies specific to that job. So you could ask that, you could ask it to act as a learning designer, you could ask it to act as a reluctant learner, or somebody who finds the topic that you need to be working on super boring. So you can really stretch yourself just by asking it to adopt a persona that is either useful to you because it's supportive and complementary, or useful because it's going to force you to stretch yourself in your thinking. So think about the steering and the persona that you're using. Think about the actual output. So you can play around with whether you want your output in a format like a table, or you want it as dot points, or you want it as a poem, or you want it as an email. You can guide it in terms of, I want this to be succinct, I want it to be professional. So you can really hone the tone of the output by including cues like that for the model. And you can also say things like, look, you can sort of bump it up a level, and rather than thinking I need to ask all the things in my prompt, say my goal today is that I want to achieve this. You tell me what I need to tell you to achieve this. And so that can be a way to really work very powerfully with the model, because it knows what it needs. And so it can guide you. So I would recommend doing all of that. You can get, like, you know, if you ever need to write a line of code, it can do some languages of code. So it can assist with things like that. You know, it does a really great lady whistle down. If you watch Lady Bridgerton and you fancy giving it a spin, you can try that as well. And it's good at, you know, you can upload photos to the chat bot. I'm just going to have a look to see if that actually is true. Yeah, so that's only in the paid version for ChatGPT, but in Microsoft Copilot, the free version allows you to upload photos. So you can take a photo of I don't know, a problem, in your house or whatever, upload it and just say, look, can you tell me how I might go about actually solving this issue? And through computer vision, it will be able to supply that advice. I just gave you a really hot tip, by the way, by mentioning that Copilot gives you that stuff for free. Copilot is a Microsoft product. Microsoft invests in OpenAI, which owns ChatGPT. And as a result, they make available to Microsoft Copilot users certain functions and features that aren't available to anyone in ChatGPT land unless you're paying as a subscriber. So Copilot you can get as an app on your phone, and it's worth taking a spin just because you're getting some of those really cool things for free through there. So yeah, it's worth it. I hope that helped, Rachel. Fantastic. Cool. No worries. Shall I move onto the human or no, sorry, Zoe. Yep.
No, great. Yeah, I was just going to say, I'm also adding into the mural here some other references. So Dr. Philippa Hardman, she's does a lot of work around the L&D space, and I know she's got like a table of prompts that she like recommends as well. And also put in here an interview that I did with a client who's an L&D consultant about how he's like kind of answering your question, David, around the why. Like he gives really tangible examples about like how he's able to do his work, in what kind of points in his process he's been using it as well, if that's helpful, just as a future reference.
I am just also adding into chat because I still can't get into the mural. There's a couple of other things that I like to do just as part of my day to keep up to date with things. So there's a tech digest called TLDR, which is short for Too Long Didn't Read. And you can get like that sent to your inbox. There's a range of options, so you can choose how much or how little you want, but it just gives you some of the headlines of what's happening in the AI world and in the tech world. And I actually quite like that for just getting the quick updates. It's one way that I can kind of stay on top of it because it's too overwhelming otherwise. And then Riley Brown is just a guy that is a bit like obsessed with all of this stuff, and he has a TikTok account. So he does a lot of, running through different aspects relating to not only ChatGPT, but also all sorts of other products. So yeah, I think just finding people who are doing the work for you is part of how you can stay ahead. And yeah, Philippa Hartman is a great one as well. So Mungo, away from work, you've been using it to transcribe screenshots. Yeah, playlists, provide data release.
Just the visual aspect where you can just go, so what's in this image, extrapolates all the text, and then does all the research in terms of, instead of looking up on Discogs each track, it'll all be there so quickly. So it's hard to go back. Once you start using that, it's really hard to go backwards. So
it really is. And I know that one of the big conversations is like, is this going to replace like Google? And like in terms of the search engine, and like genuinely, I think it might, yeah, because it has that kind of like living, breathing functionality where you're not having to rely on a human to have had the thought, and for the SEO to be working in your favor when you put in your search terms, and for the ads to not be completely blocking out all the good content that's underneath. I think Google have really done themselves a disservice by making their model so capitalized that the user experience has been sort of, I guess, neglected, because now that this stuff's coming along, the user experience here is way better. You get what you want faster. You can ask these models, particularly Copilot, where you can get this for free. You can ask them to give you the links. So, they actually are performing some of that search engine function without the noise of the ads. She says that touching wood, because we all know that's going to make its way into the AI space. But we are in a nice little sweet spot at the moment where we can get this information from it without the ads. So I think we should really enjoy this golden moment while we can, because we know it's going to come. Perplexity AI is fantastic,
Awesome.
cites the resources. And another one that you may want to look up is Claude by Anthropic. So I'll just pop that into chat as well. So that one has been outperforming the latest ChatGPT model, and gives really high quality results, but hasn't got some of the functionality that ChatGPT's got. So, you know, horses for courses, but I think know what's available, and just, yeah, have a play, get an opinion about which ones you like best.
Oh,
So I might switch gears then, Zoe, and get into the human aspects. Yeah, fantastic. So this guy here was one of my particular highlights from the conference. He's Thomas Tobin, and he talked about this idea of universal design for learning, and he spoke for about an hour and was thoroughly engaging for that entire hour. What I recall very clearly from his presentation was that he practiced what he preached. So throughout that presentation, and you can see this like up the top of his screen here, he had real-time captions running so that anybody who needed captions, or anyone who prefers to actually consume presentations with like a written form running alongside, you know, he had added that into his presentation to just make it that little bit more accessible for the people in the room. So that was really cool. He also presented this pyramid, which has stayed with me as a mental model, and I've actually hacked this in order to talk to people in my day job about the fact that they need to tailor their communications based on the audience that they're hoping to engage. So what we've got here is that, you know, at the top of the pyramid, you've got that ultra personalized kind of one-to-one personal assistant type of interaction where the learning experience or the comms or whatever it is really tailored down to that like individual level. And then as you work through the next few layers, you've got, okay, well, maybe there's individual accommodation, which isn't quite as specialized as that top layer, but is still at that kind of micro level. And then we come down and we might be talking about, you know, groups of students or learners, or we might be talking about, you know, teams at work or business units. So it's still not universal, but it's starting to expand in terms of the number of people that you're trying to reach with your message or your learning experience. And then down on the bottom, you've got that universal design, which is really what he was, I guess, pitching as the thing that we should be aiming for where we can, because it increases the accessibility for the greatest number of people. So he did a really fantastic job of talking about universal design. And some of the things that he mentioned, well, I've already said that about the real-time captions, so he used them to demonstrate, you know, how that looks in action. But he also mentioned this idea of like, you know, really, I guess, put variety into the way that you're presenting information and give people brain breaks. So he did it by, you know, stopping what he was talking about, and it seemed like it was a tangent, but it actually wasn't, where he just said, hey, does anyone remember how you were taught where to put your hands on the wheel of a car? And I will actually throw that question to you guys. So when you were taught how to drive, what were you told about where you need to put your hands on the steering wheel of the car?
10 to 2.
10 to 2. Anybody else got the 10 to 2? So like up here. Yeah, Mungo's trying it out. I was taught to drive in the 90s, and we were still being taught 10 to 2 then. That was like, you know, you have to put it up there for maximum control. And so we've all got this 10 to 2 model in our heads. So we had this conversation with him about that as an audience. And then he just kind of stops and he goes, well, do you know what? That's actually not the latest advice. The latest advice is to hold it more down here at like 9 to 3. Because if you're holding up here in modern cars, the airbags, if they ever deploy, are actually going to come straight for your hands, and you're going to end up smashing yourself in the face with your hands. So it's much safer to actually hold your hands out the way of the airbags. But for some reason, we just haven't managed to get that message out there. And so, you know, this is about, you know, sometimes our messages are so strong that it's hard to undo them. So, you know, what do we do with that around universal design? So he had this sort of interesting interlude that he included, but he included it because it's him demonstrating that sometimes you have to give people a break from what you're talking about to kind of just think about something else, engage in memories, engage in story, engage in conversation, because that's healthy and it gives people a chance to continue digesting the information. So there you go. Now, he left us all with this +1 concept. So if you produce a slide deck, that's great. If you want to make it a bit more accessible from a UDL perspective, +1 it. So it's not just a slide deck, it's a slide deck plus, you know, maybe a pre-recorded video, or it's a slide deck plus a PDF that people can read in a slightly different format. Or, you know, it's a presentation plus the video transcript so that people can cut and paste that text into another tool to have it read to them. So the +1 was a really fantastic, I think, hot tip from him. If you want more information, screenshot this one. It's his book. So Reach Everyone, Teach Everyone. I definitely got myself a copy and brought it home. And at some point in the next century, I will have time to flick through that and read it. So yeah, look, sorry, I've just like absolutely skipped ahead past Brit. So we're going to go back to Brit. Here's Brit. So she also talked about the brains and how they work, our brains. So Brit Andreatta, she's a well-known author. She keynoted as well, and her entire presentation was about neuroscience. And again, we've got this thing here about, you know, once you've introduced a range of concepts, give people the time and space to kind of learn on their own time. And so that might change the way that you program learning experiences, or it might change the way that you run workshops and things like that. We're a bit hard up on it today for time, Zoe, but you know, like if we'd been given a full day, we would perhaps be practicing what Britt is preaching there as well. And she's also mentioning about this time for reflection as well. These were a couple of the ones that I really liked from her. It was like this idea that we have a default mode in our neural network that acts as a filter constantly, because when you consider all of the data points that our brains are constantly taking in, you know, sounds, sights, smells, you know, the things that people are saying to us, contextual information about our environment and that sort of thing, it would be quite overloading if our brain didn't have the ability to kind of filter out those things and prioritize the stuff that's important to us in the moment. So she said that's generally there. You can take it offline with only with things like psychedelics. So that led to an interesting conversation. And that's why psychedelics kind of open up your mind, because it's taking off that filter. So the default mode filter, though, is active when we're allowing our mind to kind of wander, or when we're actually thinking about thinking. So if you want to kind of lean into the way that our brains work and kind of start hacking it a little bit, she gave us some tips for that. And she also mentioned that there's 3 ways if you really want to cultivate insight and deep learning and inspiration, I suppose. She said, you know, prepare your brain, you know, actually consciously be ready for learning and make your learners ready for learning. Rest the neocortex. So again, it's this message of like, don't just, you know, give your learners everything and expect them to be like machines or robots. They need time for their brains to rest and relax so that they can integrate what you've just shared with them. And a way to do that can be to use sensory gating. So actually get up and change the environment, change the sensory inputs. So have a shower, take a walk, you know, blah, blah, blah. I particularly like that one because to me that changes how productivity looks in our days. Like we should be supporting our colleagues to perhaps go and have a shower at 11 o'clock, because it gives them the downtime that they need to maybe solve the problem that needs to be solved for your workforce. So this is her book, so you can take a screenshot of that one if you like as well. I know a lot of people in the L&D community have read it and really loved it. Again, on my to-read list, haven't got there yet, but she was fantastic, and she has a bunch of stuff on YouTube that you could have a look at. And yeah, LSD not included. Thank you for that, Zoe. So look, why do we need to do this stuff? This maybe comes back to your question, David. We had Lisa Bale talk from the federal government and their digital capability arm called Future Skills Organisation. And one of the things that she mentioned here is like, it's unfortunately half hidden by the lectern, but just at this point in time, so we're talking like the results of a survey that were taken before Gen AI landed. Already 23.6% of Australians were saying that they don't feel that they've got the skills that they need digitally to be able to be active and sort of productive and empowered in the workforce. So we're talking about almost a quarter of people. And now that Gen AI is coming in, I suspect that that number is going to get very quickly much higher. So I think from a workforce perspective, we need to just, you know, be aware that we have to support people around us to upskill as quickly as we can. I'll give this one to you verbally, but I'll also pop it in chat. She mentioned the Australian Digital Capability Framework. So if you want to have a look, check that one out online and you'll get some more information about the things that they're measuring. And the last thing that I thought I'd mention is just that story came up again and again and again. So Andrew Komoda from Sydney was fantastic. He talked about programming learning so that it acts like a story. The concept is at first very complex when you are starting to learn something new, but then as you're actually getting into the swing of becoming familiar with whatever the concept is, the complexity actually drops down. And then as you come into your next wave of learning, you can then ramp it up and add some more complexity back in. So that's me boiling down what he said into a couple of sentences. I like the fact that this maybe works well with the learning arcs. So put it into your chaos pilot mode and see if you can get them overlapping. But here you can actually do this search here, learningwave.westernsydney.edu.au, and you'll get all of that information there. So I'll just leave that with you and you can explore that later. And we also had this guy, Ryan, from the Royal Australian Navy, talking about the hero journey. So again, if you've done the Chaos Pilot course, you know that the hero's journey is a bit of an archetype that people like to use to frame not only the stories that they're telling, but also the learning experiences that they're programming. And the last one I'll share, which is sort of a little bit to do with storytelling, but also just to do with human connection in general. Mary talked about the fact that she's got this SPOC, the Small Private Online Course, that is basically a MOOC that they've got powered on, let me see if I can find it in my notes because I've forgotten it. They've got it sitting on another, is it Future something? Does somebody know what I'm talking about? There's another platform that you can put MOOCs on. No, that's all right. I'm going to find it while I'm talking to you. So she's basically got this learning environment. Can I find it while I'm talking to you? Anyway, so the here we go. Future Learn platform. So their MOOCs are on Future Learn. And what they're able to do with the little sort of snippets of learning that they're generating is create this really interactive community where people can come in and asynchronously add comments and respond to each other and share stories and find connection. And so you know, they're using story to kind of help craft these experiences and these connections, but they're also really consciously designing community around learning. So I really quite liked that from Mary's presentation. She was also really, really approachable. So look her up on LinkedIn if you can. So before I finish, I'll just show you this photo and just say, look, community and humans, you know, like there's no point having a technology if we haven't got all of those people in the space. So these are just some of the smiling faces that, yeah, I met at AITD. Some of them are local, some of them are on the AITD Council and actively involved in organising events like the conference. So, yeah, like if you want to perhaps consider attending this conference next year, or you know, looking at what your local community is doing for AITD, then I recommend that you look them up. I am not on their council. I'm not being paid to say this. I'm really just sharing it as one human to another in the event that that's useful. And also in my slide deck, I'll leave these two. So I've just got a thing about the fact that I've got a TikTok account where I share a lot of stuff that I'm doing in this space when I've got time. And you can also find me on LinkedIn and things like that as well. So I'll just leave those in the deck and you can look me up later. So there you go, Zoe. That's like pretty much all my pebbles. I think I've like taken my pockets and I've kind of like turned them inside out and the pebbles are just all over the ground now.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Professor. I feel like I'm wondering now if my son is like a penguin because he also loves collecting pebbles everywhere we go. Coming home, doing the laundry, and there's like all pebbles in his pockets. Lots of pebbles. I'm wondering, with the time, definitely agree, Sabine. Definitely golden nuggets, not just pebbles. I was wondering, maybe given the number of people, we could just like forget the breakout groups and yeah, and just kind of share, you know, what. So we've had a lot of what happened. I'm curious, you know, how do we sense make around that? So, you know, in this liberating structures model, the next question will be, so what, right? So what patterns, why is any of this important to you in your work? What patterns can you kind of sense emerging? Any hypotheses you could make? Any what ifs I guess, based on this. And, as Tessa was saying, right, it was kind of clearly maybe the presentations were more kind of tech focused or human focused, but I think it's really interesting to think like goddesses and gods and think about the twin nature of these things and how do they combine, right, to help us, create more experiences, moments, learning that matters. So yeah, curious what are people's thoughts? What's kind of coming up for you in terms of the so what, or some of the things that you heard?
I guess I'll go because no one else
Yeah,
has. I'm thinking
kick us off.
often just working with Gen AI and working with people using it for the first time is a bit of a sort of a tech adoption curve. And I think I'm sort of surfing that curve, but still kind of low down. And I'm probably in a position where I need to take the next steps. Maybe like I'm working on a subject, for example, where students build a legal GPT-powered app that will answer questions in taxation law or whatever area of the law they're looking at. To do that, they need to do a short Python course. So I don't have any coding experience. I'm just be interested, Tessa, in your thoughts about sort of taking that next step beyond a very early user to, I guess, intermediary. Yeah.
So just so I can play back the question just to make sure I've got it right, you're sort of going like, so how do I go from like just dabbling to being a little bit more of a power user?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is the hard one, right? I got asked this question just recently. I've chucked this on my LinkedIn if anyone wants to listen to a whole hour of me ranting and raving about Gen AI, but I did an interview with one of our community radio stations during the week. And I've shared the link to my LinkedIn if you want to try and find it. But she asked me right at the end, like, what do you wish for everybody in the education space during this time of Gen AI? And I was like, well, I'd like everyone to be granted a 6-month sabbatical, because the one thing that you need is time. It's just time. Like, it is not, like there's 1,000 people peddling like, oh, download this free guide for 1,000 ChatGPT prompts and stuff like that. That person just went straight to ChatGPT and said, give me 1,000 prompts, and then they've just bundled it up and monetized it, right? So there's a lot of sort of snake oil salesmen around at the moment. So I think don't be put off by those people, and don't think that you need to buy the product, buy the perfect book, in order to have knowledge. You will get the knowledge by trying it out, by experimenting and by talking to others. By following the people like we've mentioned, and just getting their hot tips and kind of picking up their pebbles along the way. But it's really mostly just time. I think, developers have got an edge in that they can do certain things with these products around connecting them with other systems through APIs and things like that. That's kind of like, to me, the next level up. But like you, Mungo, I don't have dev experience. I have dev friends that I can buy coffees. So
Cool.
maybe if you want to go to the next ring out, you need to make friends with some developers on campus, or just maybe do a call out through a local notice board or something and see if you can team up. Because what I would be personally doing to level up if I had the time is I would be teaming up with a developer friend to train my own GPT, because you can do that now. And I know exactly the data that I would feed it. I know exactly the use case that I would like to apply it to, but I need the time, and I need that kind of dev help to kind of get the next leg up. But I think that needing the dev is maybe a transitory thing. Like, I feel like that problem is going to solve itself as these things become more user friendly and can kind of build themselves, which is like Skynet material. But
Yep. Thanks, Tessa.
No, you're welcome. And you can talk to me anytime as well about this stuff, and I'll tell you what my latest is. But yeah, make time, argue for building communities of practice. I am currently arguing that we need to have a Gen AI roadmap, which is just a transitory sort of answer to what's going to be happening to our workforce as they start using this, because we've got a policy where I currently am that is don't use the technology, but people are using it. So, you know, let's get on the front foot and just actually let people have the conversation and not feel ashamed about it. And let people connect so that they can say, hey, I saw this cool thing on the weekend, or like, you know, oh my God, have you tried this piece of technology called, I didn't even mention this one today, Sona.ai, SONA.ai. You can go into that and say that you want any piece of music, like with a male vocal, a female vocal, instrumental. You can make it operatic, you can make it heavy metal, you can tell it what the lyrics need to be. So yeah, go into Sona AI if you like. No worries. So yeah, any other questions? I'm happy to hang around as long as anyone wants me.
Yeah, TJ's moved outside, I think, so we could hear. Did you want
to? I think now that I've moved outside, I can't figure out what I needed to say. It was just, I don't know, my mind's a little bit blown. I think I had been thinking about it as like a thing over in its little box that I either engaged with or didn't, and it was going to take me a lot of time and effort. And now I'm seeing it more as like adding 10 or 15% to everything that we do. And seeing some of the spaces where perhaps we've already been trying it without even knowing, like starting to auto caption everything that we do, which has been a janky process, but quite cool to experiment with. Like awesome. Live captioning as we're training in the classroom. Actually, that's one to maybe put out to the group generally. We've been trialing live captioning everything as we do it. And I've had this real sort of back and forth as to whether we have the live captioning up on the presentation itself behind the speaker, which for some people is really useful and for others becomes incredibly distracting because it is an imperfect or maybe in some ways too perfect of a translation in that it gets all the ums, ahs, buts. The sentence is half finished. So then we've moved it to being on just a little iPad in front of the person who actually wants it. But again, then it's not available to everyone and everyone has to like actively opt into using it. So just sort of putting it out there that if that was something that we scaled up to an 800-person conference, like, I don't know, have you tried it? Benefits, limitations of auto live captioning everything all of the time.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Yeah. We like in that session that Thomas ran, the live captions were there, but I do definitely live a little bit in that bucket of like I found it a bit distracting because I was too busy watching for the spelling errors and the kind of parts where the language wasn't picked up properly. And then of course we have the added thing of our Australian accents where generally like he's got an American accent, so he's fine. But generally it can really struggle with some of the Australian accents. So we are a little bit further behind, I think, getting suitable solutions. But I mean, it could even be that you ask individuals to take matters into their own hands. So for example, things like Otter AI. We had a couple of people actually in the audience at the AITD who didn't want to be distracted by note taking. So they were running Otter AI and recording the audio and getting the live transcript. So that could be another way.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. That's really helpful.
No, you're welcome.
Yeah, just we've got a few big projects coming up that are like, I've got a huge data set that's part numbers and part storytelling. And now I'm thinking about, could I actually ask AI to do the first pass on turning that into something usable and readable for an audience, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and you can say like I need it to be at readability level, you know, age 8 or you know, so you can really like steer it in terms of the needs of the audience too.
Fascinating. Thank you so much. That was just welcome. I've got like pages of notes now to go back over.
Well, Zoe's got the recording too, so yeah. It's very hard to get 3 days worth of mind-blowing content into a very short session, but you know, we do the best we can. Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you.
No, and I just wanted to just echo your thoughts there, TJ, because I had a similar kind of thought initially, and then it was actually through talking with my client that I realized that like, and in terms of the why was a big a big insight in that, things that previously maybe that they would have hired us to do, they're now doing through AI. So kind of like, oh, okay, that makes it even more interesting and relevant, right? To think about, okay, how do we use it as well for our own benefit? And Trevor gave in that interview quite a lot of just really practical examples of like at what points in the kind of designing something process he used it as like a starting point, helping to structure, do an initial structuring for then you to contextualize, etc., etc. Yeah, so I can definitely relate to what you were saying in that sense as well. Yeah.
Are any of the talks recorded in a way that we could access from the conference? Do you know?
So conference attendees were able to access some slides that were shared, but I had a look at that drive, and there really weren't too many in there. So I think it would be maybe a matter of like just I mean, have a look on LinkedIn using the hashtag like AITD 2024, and you'll probably pull up some of the things that were shared actually in the heat of the moment. So I think you get a lot of the flavour and the vibe of what was said there. And then a lot of people like me will have their own individual spaces where you could probably go in and, hear them speak about certain things. So you could probably build your own pseudo conference. But yeah, I think only available to the participants, I think. So yeah.
Which is totally fair.
Yeah. Yeah.
We need to be there next year. Awesome. Thank you.
It's that, like, do you know, I have to say, like, I'd been very sick for about 4 weeks before the conference, and I was kind of like, oh, I've committed to this thing, and like I'm also pregnant as well, so that was like the added bonus. And I was like, oh, I should just pull out. It's too much. And then my partner said to me, no, you need to go because this is going to kind of fill your cup. And I was like, oh, okay, fine. So I pulled together my presentation and did it. And then by the end of 3 days of like presenting, hearing cool ideas, kind of getting the dopamine, the connections and everything, I was feeling right as rain again. He's like, I told you. And AITD, I think, is just generally like that. Like, I just love that community of people. And I think that's learning and development, right, as well. Like, it's just people who are generous of spirit and open to learning and not egos, so it's just it's a joy to sit with people like that, especially for 3 days. Yeah. David, yeah, you know what, that is so true what you've just said there about Skynet and the digital divide. I mentioned this one in my radio interview during the week because in classrooms, so I'm now talking at sort of high school level, I guess, where we're relying on kids to have resources. It's weird because at this moment in time, this is an equalizer. So the kids have, if they've got a phone, which a lot of them do have as a sort of baseline, they've got access to these super powerful models that can help them to bust out of the things that they're up against in life, because there's no barrier to entry other than having a an internet connected phone. But I think that is only a moment in time thing, because eventually everything's going to be in a subscription model. The AI is going to be so powerful that you're going to need really powerful hardware to be able to run it. And so eventually the digital divide is going to be further reinforced. So at this moment in time, I think we've got a really good opportunity to use this for social good. But yeah, I'm not naive, and I know that it's only a moment in time. So I think that's also part of why I'm passionate about this stuff, because it's like the faster we can get word out, the better the opportunity is to maybe shape where this goes. Because if we don't, it goes into the hands of the usual people, doesn't it? Yeah.
I was curious, Akris, in the university space, what are your thoughts as we wrap up the session?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of AI, but I also worry that we might lose some of the being able to have our own voice and being able to have original ideas, because like I started using ChatGPT like from the beginning. I loved it. It was amazing. But over time, I'm seeing, it speaks in a particular way. And, it's so easy to pick up. And I just worry that it is great to use in some instances, but then if we use it too much, then you know, what are the consequences of that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, I share those concerns as well. I think ChatGPT has, you know, it shoots for the middle. It's a solid C+ or a B- student. It's been trained on, you know, a huge amount of data off the internet, which, as we know, contains some really fantastic content and a lot of noise and rubbish. And so when you pull that all together, it gives you a good solid average answer with a good solid average tone. And, you know, like, it's average and it's good. And so for the people who can't produce outputs at that average level, this is going to, you know, bring them up. Is it going to give them new skills? Probably not, but it will sort of, on the surface, help to lift their game. For the people who are used to operating at a much higher level, you will find that this is a bit of a come down. And so I think for people like that, it's much better to then go, right, how do I employ my skills in education and training and understanding what evidence looks like and understanding what I'm looking for? How can I apply that to get this model to do what I want it to do? And so I think for those people, you're still going to be able to get access to the good quality outputs because you have got that skill and that ability to be able to tune it in that way. I'm really aware that I have skills as somebody who grew up pre-internet and also started life as an English teacher, that my kids are maybe not going to have around understanding form and purpose and audience and context. You know, like, I'm applying that stuff to get really good quality things out of these models. I don't know that my kids are going to get that same grounding in critical analysis that I got going to school a couple of generations ago. And so I think we need to explicitly teach these things now more than ever, so that people using these tools understand how they're using them and what makes them powerful users, and they're not just sitting back and passively consuming whatever the tool is telling it to do, telling us to do. So yeah, that's me trying to be an English teacher who still is English teaching. You can take them out of the classroom. Yeah.
I'm a former
Yeah.
English teacher as well, so
Yeah.
it's hard to
So we understand each
not
other.
talk about that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think also, you know, like, I've just reviewed a bunch of CVs for a role where I think we had something like, you know, 80 CVs and cover letters. It is so obvious what is ChatGPT produced. You know, you only need to read 3 and you go, here we go. It's the same style, it's the same structure, it's the same concepts. And even though nothing is reproduced twice, is still recognizably ChatGPT. So I think anybody who's using it for that sort of purpose and not putting their own human like spin on it, it's going to be obvious to, you know, a lot of people. Not everyone, but it will be obvious to a lot of people. For me, it was one candidate who said, "I am a beacon of hope for," and then the sentence went on. I was like, "Are you serious?" Like, no candidate will write that. Like, and it just sort of confirmed for me that, yeah, a large amount of that cover letter was AI produced. So, you know, hats off to them for using the tool and the tools and the tech that are available to them. But the question is, can you use it well and effectively for the purpose? So yeah, that separates the wheat from the chaff.
Wow, well, we only had 90 minutes and it went very quickly. But I really want to thank you, Tessa, especially with everything going on, for your generosity of time and spirit. And yes, no problem, Sylvain. Thanks for persisting and staying with us. I'll send through. I know we're up to time, but I'll send through in a follow-up all the links to the recording, etc. And also, we have some. You might have noticed in previous meetups or newsletters, we're working with one of our alum and the community collective to try to really, see how we can transform and make our alumni community even more active, more valuable to people. Would love to get your take on that, given your participation, particularly here today. There's a survey that we've created and some time slots we've set up to have a one-on-one chat with folks. If you'd like to contribute that way. And yeah, I think that was it. But lovely to see new and familiar faces here today. And yeah, definitely lots of pebbles / nuggets, Tessa. So thank you very much. Hopefully that's a good practice as well for you, because I know you're going to share with others. So hopefully you can take that as well. And awesome.
It means I've got my deck ready. It's great.
That's right.
On all those
Awesome.
typos.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Yeah, I've
Thanks,
already
Tessa.
corrected those, David. We're all good. Have a good day, everyone. Lovely to meet you all.
Thanks,
Thanks,
ya.
everyone.
Tessa.
Take care. Bye.